The water streamed down in steady rivulets, tracing warm paths along my skin, pooling at my feet before swirling down the drain. The air in the bathroom was thick with steam, fogging up the mirror, clinging to the walls, wrapping me in a cocoon of warmth. I exhaled, letting my head tip back slightly under the spray, my fingers idly smoothing over my arms, washing away the long day that clung to me like a second skin. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I had been alone when I stepped into the shower, my husband gone for the evening, leaving me with nothing but the silence of an empty house and the soft hum of water against tile. I hadn't locked the door. There was no need. There had never been a need. Until now. Because just as I reached for the bottle of shampoo, I heard it. The quiet creak of the bathroom door. A sound so soft, so subtle, that for a moment I thought I had imagined it. The kind of sound that could have been nothing. The kind of sound that should have been nothing. But it wasn't. Because a second later, I heard it again. I stilled, my pulse slowing, thickening in my veins, every inch of me suddenly hyper-aware of the space beyond the shower curtain. My breath came out steady, controlled, but my fingers tightened slightly around the bottle in my hand, my senses stretching outward, straining against the hiss of the water, listening, waiting, searching. The floorboards outside the bathroom door didn't creak. There was no telltale shift of movement, no soft rustle of fabric against skin. But I knew, the way you just know when something isn't right, when something has changed, when you are no longer alone. I could feel it. I swallowed, keeping my breathing even, refusing to react, refusing to move too quickly. My mind worked through the possibilities, through the reasons, through the logical explanations I wanted to reach for but couldn't quite grasp. And then, a shadow flickered against the light beyond the curtain. The steam blurred the edges, distorted the shape, but it was there, tall, still, unmoving. Watching. The bottle in my hand slipped slightly, the slick plastic shifting beneath my grip. The noise was small, insignificant, but in the thick silence of the bathroom, it felt deafening. And whoever was standing beyond that curtain, they had heard it. The air shifted. A breath. A pause. A moment stretched too long. And then, the shadow moved. A chill rippled down my spine despite the heat of the water. My fingers, slick with soap, tightened around the bottle, knuckles white. I wasn't imagining this. I wasn't overthinking. Someone was there. I turned slightly, just enough to shift my weight without making a sound, just enough to feel my pulse hammering against my ribs. The noise of the water had drowned out the rest of the house, leaving me in a world of steam and warmth and the ever-growing awareness that I was not alone. I swallowed hard. Hello? My voice was steady, controlled. I forced it to be. Nothing. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, pressing against my ears, wrapping around my chest. Then, the softest shift of fabric. The sound of someone exhaling, barely audible over the running water. My stomach tightened. I wasn't wrong. I wasn't imagining it. Someone was standing just beyond the curtain, just past the fragile barrier of steam and water and the thin fabric that separated us. And they weren't leaving. I forced another breath into my lungs, feeling the weight of the moment settle deep into my bones. I could feel the heat of the water dripping down my back, sliding over my shoulders, but all my focus was locked on that one dark shape beyond the curtain. A heartbeat passed, then another. Then, a hand, slow and deliberate, pressed against the outside of the curtain. My breath caught. Not a full grip, not a sudden movement, just a single press of fingers against the damp fabric, indenting it slightly, as if testing something, as if waiting for a reaction. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. The hand remained there, hovering, fingers just barely shifting, as if deciding whether or not to go further. The water pounded against my back, my ears, my skin, but all I could hear was the slow thudding of my own heartbeat, the rush of blood in my veins, the way time seemed to stretch impossibly long. And then, just as quietly as it had appeared, the hand was gone. A shiver ran through me, hard and sudden, the contrast of the warm water against the cold reality settling into my gut. My fingers flexed, gripping the shower handle, but I didn't turn off the water. Not yet. Because I wasn't sure what was worse, knowing someone had been there, standing just beyond the curtain, or knowing they had disappeared without a trace. I exhaled shakily, blinking against the steam, my body humming with unease. And then, carefully, deliberately, I reached for the edge of the curtain. My pulse pounded. I could hear it in my ears, could feel it in my chest, deep and insistent. I gripped the fabric, hesitated. Then, I yanked it back. The bathroom was empty. Steam curled through the air, thick and warm, clinging to the mirrors, the countertops, the closed door. Nothing moved. Nothing shifted. The space was exactly as I had left it. But the door, which I had left slightly ajar before stepping into the shower, was now closed. And I knew, without a doubt, that I had not closed it myself. A sharp exhale pushed past my lips, my grip tightening around the curtain as I scanned the room again, my mind racing. The mirror, clouded with steam, obscured my reflection, warped the edges of the room, made everything feel unreal, dreamlike. But this wasn't a dream, and I was not alone. A noise soft, almost imperceptible, echoed from just beyond the bathroom door. And this time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to know what was waiting on the other side. The noise outside the door was faint, but it was there. A quiet shuffle, the whisper of movement, barely noticeable over the soft hum of water still cascading behind me. My breath was slow, deliberate, controlled, though every muscle in my body was wound tight, waiting, listening. I wasn't imagining it. I knew that now. Someone had been in the bathroom. Someone had stood just inches from me, separated by nothing but steam and thin fabric, close enough that I had felt the weight of their presence, close enough that I had seen their shadow shift, had felt the briefest press of fingers against the damp curtain. And now they were on the other side of the door. I exhaled, pressing my fingers against the cool countertop, grounding myself, forcing my thoughts to steady. The fogged mirror reflected only a blur of my outline, the haze of condensation making it impossible to see clearly. But I didn't need the mirror to know what I was feeling. I was not alone. My fingers twitched against the towel draped over the rack beside me. My movements were slow, deliberate as I pulled it around myself, wrapping the fabric tightly against my skin. Water still dripped from my hair, tracing slow rivulets down my spine, but I ignored the chill curling at the base of my neck, ignored the way my heart hammered against my ribs, steady but insistent. I turned my head slightly, my gaze shifting toward the closed door. The handle was still, unmoving, but the quiet beyond it felt heavy, dense, as if something waited on the other side, just beyond reach. Another breath. Then, a shadow flickered beneath the door. A brief shift. A movement that sent ice curling through my veins, despite the lingering heat of the shower. My pulse skipped, my grip tightening around the towel. My mind worked through the possibilities, the logical explanations, but they all unraveled as quickly as they formed. My husband wasn't home. No one else had a key. And yet, someone was standing on the other side of that door. Watching. Waiting. I inhaled, steadying my breath, my bare feet pressing against the tile as I took a single step forward. The air felt thicker, the heat of the room pressing against my skin, but my focus remained locked on the door, on the shadows shifting just beyond it. I reached out, my fingers hovering just above the handle, my breath slow, deliberate. If I opened it now, if I turned the knob and pulled it back, I would come face to face with whoever was standing there. I hesitated. A long, stretched out moment. And then, the doorknob turned. Slowly, deliberately. A quiet, controlled movement, not hurried, not frantic. Measured. I took a step back, my heart slamming against my ribs, the towel still clutched tightly against my body. My breath came out in a slow, shallow exhale, the air between me and the door thick with something unspoken, something I wasn't ready to name. The knob stopped. The silence stretched. And then, a single knock. Soft, barely there. Almost as if it was testing something, waiting for a response. I swallowed. Who's there? No answer. The silence dragged, thick and heavy, pressing against my ears, wrapping around my chest, making each breath feel shallower, more fragile. The steam in the room was beginning to thin, but the air still felt dense, charged with something unspoken, something lingering just beyond the door. Another knock. My fingers curled into the towel, my breath steady but slow, my mind racing. I could feel the pulse at my throat, steady but insistent, matching the rhythm of the moment, the weight of the silence between each knock, between each second that ticked by in slow, heavy increments. Then, finally, a voice, low, familiar. It's me. The words sent a ripple through me, slow and deliberate, threading through my senses, making my skin prickle. My fingers tightened against the towel, my breath catching slightly as I recognized the voice, the weight of it settling deep in my chest. I knew who it was, and that terrified me more than the uncertainty. "What are you doing here?" My voice was quieter than I intended, controlled, but edged with something I couldn't quite contain. Another pause. Then, the door was open. A simple answer. A quiet one, but not an explanation. My stomach tightened, a slow coil of something I wasn't ready to name settling low in my spine. My fingers flexed against the towel, my mind working through the implications of those words, through the weight of what he wasn't saying. I inhaled, my pulse steady but insistent. "You're not supposed to be here." Another pause. Then, "I know." The words lingered, settling into the air between us, stretching the moment until it felt impossibly long, until it felt like something else entirely. I swallowed, my gaze locked on the door, on the faint shadow of his form just beyond it. "Then why are you still here?" A breath, a hesitation. Then, finally, "Because you didn't tell me to leave." My heart slammed against my ribs, the weight of his words pressing into me, threading through my senses, settling somewhere deep, somewhere warm, somewhere dangerous. I exhaled, steadying myself, steadying the slow hum of tension curling around us, threading through the silence, through the space that still existed between us, fragile but crackling with something unspoken. He was waiting. And so was I. The moment stretched. The air between us thickened. My grip tightened slightly against the towel, my pulse steady but insistent, matching the quiet hum of anticipation settling low in my stomach. I could feel the weight of his presence, the heat of the moment pressing against my skin, making every inch of me feel more aware, more alive. I could have told him to go. I should have told him to go. But I didn't. And as the silence stretched, as the moment held, as the weight of what we weren't saying settled between us, I realized something I wasn't ready to admit. I didn't want him to leave. And he knew it. Just as much as I did.